unconditional surrender. Let's bring in Mark Dubowitz. He is the chief executive of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, good to see you as always. So let's talk first of all about how you see events going in the war inside Iran. Obviously, enormous damage to its military and its facilities, nuclear, missile, and navy. How much damage is the bombing doing to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its besieged enforcers of internal control?
So, Paul, we've seen, as you say, serious damage done to Iran's nuclear missile navy, and that's very important because President Trump laid that out as three of the objectives. Also going after Iran's terror proxies, the Israelis are hammering Hezbollah in Lebanon as we speak. The Israelis also have been going after the repression apparatus, the IRGC and the Basij. They've taken out dozens of commanders of both those institutions that were used to brutalize Iranians in January. And I think we're just getting started. I mean, the Israeli Air Force and the American Air Force now have complete Air Force dominance, airspace supremacy. And now they can strike at will.
Do you get a sense from your sources in Israel and in Washington, but just how long they think this bombing campaign needs to go before you really do serious damage to these sources of internal control?
So I think President Trump has talked about weeks. Secretary Hegseth has talked about weeks. And now with air dominance, they can really start to hit at the repression apparatus, at the defense industrial base. The United States and Israel are now going after missile production facilities, not just missile inventories and missile launchers, but are starting to destroy the actual production capabilities. And I think that's what's going to be necessary, because regardless of what happens with respect to the regime and its leadership, the most important thing is what President Trump set out as his objective, was to ensure that Iran will no longer have the deadly capabilities to threaten U.S. forces, U.S. embassies, U.S. allies, and over time the American homeland.
So as you look at the Iranian regime strategy here, to the extent it has one, what do you think what is their strategy? How would you describe it as they attempt to survive?
Well, they call it the mosaic strategy, and that's really to disperse command and control widely and to the command level. They learned a painful lesson in the 12-day war last year when their command and control was destroyed and they really had no ability to respond. Now they're giving those command and control decisions to IRGC commanders and missile commanders within the sort of 32 bases that the IRGC has set up, and they're firing, as your reporter outlined, they're firing on Gulf allies. They're attempting to try to get the Gulf to pressure President Trump to stop the war. They're also trying to close the Straits of Hormuz. They've been unsuccessful militarily, but of course, because of insurance premiums that have gone up, there are a lot of these tankers that have yet to be able to go through this Hormuz, and there's a lot of oil that is stacking up. The United States and the Secretary of the Treasury and DFC have put in place some insurance backstops, and we should see some of those tankers beginning to move through Hormuz in the coming days.
So, yeah, they're trying to raise the cost of the war to pressure President Trump to stop as soon as possible. But President Trump isn't sounding like that. His comments are that he's going to demand unconditional surrender. How do you read that in this context? Of course, it echoes of World War II.
I think President Trump is saying to the regime, if you want to survive, then I have conditions. You don't have conditions. I have conditions. And those conditions will be nuclear, missile, terror, and the end of repression. I mean, I think President Trump would contemplate an Iranian leader who emerges from the regime, who emerges from the army, who is willing to comply with those terms of surrender. But what he's not willing to contemplate is the possibility of this regime reconstituting its deadly capabilities, and in a year or two, or even worse, when he's gone and there's a new president in the White House who's not willing to take on this Islamic Republic, this regime emerges with those deadly capabilities reconstituted and still represents a threat to the United States and our allies.
Mark, do you see any cracks forming so far in the regime? That is, any dissension from some of the leaders where they might want to become the kind of official Trump could deal with?
We haven't seen it from leadership. I mean, there's been reporting from Iran International, which is the best Iranian opposition channel out there, that says that certainly at the not at the command level, not at the leadership level, but Iranian soldiers and those who've been manning missile launchers who've been refusing to show up for work. I mean, Paul, the worst job right now is to be manning an Iranian missile launcher, because you may get your missile away, but the second you do, U.S. and Israeli radar locks on you, and all of a sudden you are no more. So that's a pretty bad job, and I think there are some people who are starting to say this is not worth it.
All right, Mark Dubowitz, thank you, as always, for your insights. Appreciate it. Still ahead, as the U.S. military campaign in Iran enters its second week, some are warning that America and its